In this video, I'll demonstrate how to implement AJAX-style dropdowns and partial page actions using the dropdown control extender that ships as part of the Microsoft AJAX Control Toolkit. So to get started, I'll fire up Visual Web Developer, select an AJAX-enabled website template, and go over into my source view for my default.aspx page. Just create a little space there for ourselves. First thing I need is a label, and the label is the ASP.NET control that's going to be extended to become a drop-down control. So let's change the ID to be something a little bit more meaningful than label 1. This is where our text is going to go, so we'll call that text label. And let's set the actual text value to be a prompt to the user. Select an option. Let's hop over to design mode, and I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. Okay. Next, we need a panel to serve as the drop-down. So right underneath that label, let's go down and find an ASP.NET panel, drop that in, and let's change the name from panel 1 to drop panel. And we're going to pick up sizing from a style sheet that we're going to include. So let's get rid of the default height and width. Go out onto my desktop and grab a style sheet. Now, in order to use the style sheet, of course, I need to drag it out of the Solutions Explorer and into the header section of my default.aspx page. And now inside the panel, actually first let's use that CSS class. So the name of the class is Context Menu Panel. And I'm going to add a couple of style elements manually because we don't want this panel to be displayed until we've explicitly asked for it. So I'll do that by saying style equals, and first we're going to say display is none. And then next we're going to say, oops, let's get rid of that extra quote mark there. And then next, after display none, we're going to say visibility is hidden. And now we can add the items that we want to be selected in that drop-down. So we're going to do that with using ASP.NET link buttons. So let's pop one in here, and let's change it from change the name so it just reflects what these actually are, which are drop-down options. So option 1, and a couple of other adjustments I want to make here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the text value as the property. And the interesting thing about this is that if we wanted to, we could actually implement these dynamically in JavaScript, either predicated on some other data that was on the page or as the result of JSON-based data that's returned from an AJAX-style service method call. So I'm just going to place the text to be displayed in the drop-down options here in the text property in this fashion. The other thing we're going to do here is we're going to use CSS classes again to determine what some of the appearance is going to be. And so to do that, we'll say CSS class equals, and the name of the class is Context Menu Item. One of the other things that I'm going to do here is, since we're not actually going to contain anything other than attributes in this, we don't need the full tag. And last thing we're going to do is we're going to call a server-side method. So we're going to say onClick equals onSelect, and then in our code behind we'll implement an onSelect method back in our code behind VB file. And this is a code behind method and not a JavaScript method because this is a server-side control. So having done that, let's grab this, make a copy, and pop in a couple of more instances. Let's change call that option 2, option 3, and we'll change the text to align with that. And here, let's add a little text to this one. Okay. All right. So remember, we haven't yet implemented this onSelect function. We'll do that momentarily. Now, the next thing we need to do is implement the drop-down control extender. So to do that, we'll go down to the AJAX Toolkit tab that we created when we installed the AJAX Control Toolkit. It doesn't happen automatically. Remember, you have to do it manually. And we're going to go down and find the drop-down extender and drag an instance onto the page. That's just telling me that the DLL already exists. Give that a shorter ID there. And now there's just two things that I need to do. One is I need to specify what the target control ID is going to be. And the target control is our label, so we call that text label. Next, I need to specify what the drop-down control ID is. And we just call that drop panel. And that's all we need to do there. And let's create a little spacing for ourselves here. Now, we want to take some action based on the selection that gets made. So let's go grab an update panel, because we want that action to change the user interface display, but we want to do that in an AJAX style update method. So we'll add an update panel, and then we're just going to have to, of course, add a content template. And then inside our content template, we'll just add an ASP.NET label control, and we'll just access this label control from our server-side onSelect method. So let's call this label selection. Okay, and start with nothing in that nothing in the field, and we need to tell our update panel what we want to cause an update. So we will do that by specifying async postback trigger control ID equals option 1, which is the first link button, and event name equal click. And then we just need to duplicate that same async postback trigger 3 times. Change the control to option 2, add one for option 3. Okay, now all we need to do is go into the Visual Basic code behind and implement the action method that we called onSelect. So let's do that by saying protected sub on select by val sender as object, and then we want the system arguments, event args there. And then all we have to say is label selection. Isn't that what I named that? Let's go back and check. So we say label selection dot text equal you selected, and let's bold the selection. Close out our bold tag there. Well, it says it's not declared, but it is, so let's go ahead and run our application. So notice that when we hover over to our label field, it's now a drop-down, and here are the three options that we specified. And notice how all of our controls here are picking up the CSS classes that we specified. Now if we select the option, we get the post back, and our second label is populated with the results of our VB code behind. So all done with no full page refreshes, so all very AJAX styled in presentation, and that's it. That's all it takes to implement AJAX style drop-downs with dynamic partial page update action triggers using the drop-down extender control that ships as part of the Microsoft AJAX Control Toolkit.